Awesome. Thank you so much. So again, my name is Alishia Anderson, and I am one of the facilitators for the BIPOC support group. I am originally from Michigan, from the Midwest, but I currently live in Los Angeles with my husband, and I have 2 living children. My firstborn son, DJ, was born in 2016, and I ended up getting involved with RTZ. I used to be one of the moderators on their BIPOC support group or their BIPOC Facebook group. And I was a moderator there. And then I ended up going into being a co-facilitator with Kima. Some of you may have been in Kima and I's groups. And so I started with her and then met Anna and Domenique through being a facilitator in RTZ. So I've been working with RTZ now for 3 years, and it has been bittersweet. I love to meet all of you, but it's sad that we have to meet on an occasion where we are connected through loss. But I am honored to get to do this work and meet you all and stay connected with you all and see you all progress on your different journeys. So I'm honored to be here today. And I am going to, if you look at our slides, we each have a symbol. So the symbol that I use for DJ is a butterfly, and you'll see between myself, Anna, and Domenique are different symbols that we honor our children by. So that's what that represents on our slide. So I'll turn it over to Anna.
Thank you. And yes, bittersweet is exactly how I feel about being here. And as I always share and preach to the fellow lost mamas and parents who I connect with, grief and joy can coexist. It does coexist, although in the beginning it doesn't feel like that's possible. And being in this space with RTZ fellow support group participants and facilitators has been exactly that. It has been a space where both grief and joy coexist, especially when Domenique, Alishia, and I get together for our little chats. I'm Ana Calix. I live in the Chicago area currently. I was born and raised in Honduras, and I have been RTZ support group facilitator for a couple of years now. And this fall, we're very excited to be launching the first Spanish-speaking support group. So that starts in October, and you'll hear a little bit more about that later. I'm here, as I said, in honor of my son, Liam. He's who launched me into this journey. I was working in perinatal care at the time when I became pregnant, and he was my first pregnancy, my first child. And everything was great. And I was a perfect patient and had all the resources and knowledge and everything, unlike many people who enter into the lost world blindsided. I was fully aware of all of the possible negative outcomes and risks and everything. And even so, my baby died. And Liam was, he died and he was stillborn on his due date. And that was in 2016. Next month will be 7 years for me. I originally connected with RTZ just through, online Google rabbit holes, saw the movie, met Kylie at a conference, worked with Betsy in her movement classes, and then eventually got connected into becoming a support group facilitator. And again, I'm honored to be here with you all. Thank you all for showing up, thinking of all of you and all of your babies in our conversation today. And I forgot my slide.
Yes, I was going to say, don't forget your slide.
And my symbol for Liam is leaves. And I got one on my arm here. It's my memorial tattoo. Now that you saw that, go ahead, Domenique.
Thank you for sharing. I love that. Hi, community. I am Domenique Rice. I echo my co-facilitators here in the sense that it is a bittersweet every time that we get together, because we have paid the ultimate price to be here, and we fully recognize that. My son TJ was stillborn 6 years ago this past May. He is my second child, and I have 4 living children. And my journey as a grieving what I like to refer to as an unapologetic griever and a mother to um, uh, both living and dead children has really evolved over the course of the past 6 years. But I've been supporting the Return to Zero Hope community over the past 6 years at different capacities. So I connected with Betsy and Kylie about 5.5 years ago, attending one of the retreats. But it really wasn't until the past year did I have the bandwidth to support at a larger capacity with my fellow co-facilitators here, Alishia and Anna, in the support groups. But really my reason for connecting with Return to Zero Hope at this capacity has been to really help amplify and hold space for diverse individuals. One of the things that I was mentioning to the panelists here earlier is you don't typically see diverse individuals in the loss or child or pregnancy loss or death space. And it is so essential more than ever to make space and to give us the opportunity to honor our grief and our own journey. So thrilled to be here talking about just how much this support group and the space means to every single one of us, and also looking forward to hopefully welcoming you and others as we continue to evolve and grow as a stronger community, a diverse community for Return to Zero Hope. So thank you so much for spending the next 40 minutes with us here tonight.
Thank you so much, Domenique and Anna, for sharing. Before we hop into who our panelists are, we just wanted to share a few things that past participants have said about our support group. We started doing a survey at the end of the 6 weeks with us together because we wanted to get feedback from our participants, and we also use the feedback to make sure that we are addressing the concerns or the questions that you all have that may arise in group. And so our materials that we use for educational purposes in support group, we often update because we want to make sure that we are addressing the things that you all need as participants, because this is your group. We want you to come in group. We want you to feel comfortable to speak about your babies, but we also want you all to build community. So we often try to update the materials we use so that it is accommodating everybody that enters this safe space, because we know that it is very hard to come into a space like this. And so we want you to feel as comfortable as possible so that you can begin to tackle what it is to grieve and navigating all these hard emotions that you may run into. So here are some things that some of our past participants have said. They felt less alone once they left group, that the support group created a safe space and guidance for her. That was from Caitlin Garcia. And then support group allowed me to simply focus on my miscarriage and the additional grief, not my skin color represented as a statistic. And that is actually from one of our panelists, Ashley Gordy, who you will hear from in just a second. So we just wanted to mention that we really honor the space that we create in RTZ for BIPOC individuals, because like Domenique said, that we aren't often represented in this space. And so our voices, our stories, our babies, all of those matter. And we want you to feel comfortable to share. And so if you can hit the next slide for me, Anna, we are going to go into meeting our panelists. So I am going to go on mute, and you will hear from Ashley Gordy, Marquetta Austin, and Suli Morano, and they can introduce themselves, and then we will hop into our discussion questions.
Good morning, good evening, everybody. My name is Ashley Gordy. I go by Love Ashley Lane. I am from the East Coast in the States, but I'm currently in Siem Reap, Cambodia. I was offered some opportunities to expand my yoga teaching journey. So here I am. My baby is baby Gigi, my baby girl. And I was part of the RTZ BIPOC support group early 2022. So thank you all for being here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marquetta Austin. I live in Columbus, Ohio. I was born and raised in Akron, Ohio, but now living in Columbus. Um, I was a part of the RTZ support group in March of this year with Alishia and Domenique as my facilitators. My son is Zion. Unfortunately, he passed away February 11th, 2023. So about 4 or 5 weeks before I actually joined the group, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. But just glad to be here sharing, our stories and sharing with everybody here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Suli. I live in Seattle, Washington, and I'm originally from Panama. My baby's name is Miles, and I lost him in March of 2022. He was diagnosed with trisomy 13, and I had a termination for medical reasons. And I'm looking forward to sharing about my experience with this space and why I think it was such an important part to my healing.
Thank you so much again for your introductions. These are some amazing panelists, so I am excited for you to hear what they have to say about group. So we are going to jump straight into the discussion. So when you found RTZ Hope support groups, how did you feel about signing up? What were your motivations or hesitations? So you guys can jump in.
Yeah, I can go ahead and start. I got connected to RTZ Hope through I worked in early childhood and social services, and somewhere in my brain, I just remember friends having miscarriages, but was very disconnected from what even that truly was. Because my first pregnancy was successful. He's now 10 years old. So, but I thought it was still something to just have available for the families that I was working with, just in case they had this experience. Um, I was starting another support group, and before we even got into introductions, and this support group was free. Before we even got through introductions, before they even got to me, I could feel my skin crawling. And all of a sudden I just logged off. I was like, this isn't for me. It wasn't there was no one in the group that looked like me. I just kept thinking about all the other things that was attached to just my grieving in that space, right? My son had moved to go live with his dad at the time, and that was the first time he was living with anybody outside of me. I just got married, and then my husband became abusive, so that process, and then dealing with a miscarriage that same year. So there was a lot that was very compacted in my grief, and I knew I needed the right support. I couldn't identify it, I couldn't articulate it. It was more of a feeling. I knew I just needed a particular group of people to really be able to hold me up. So when I saw back in my email that there was a BIPOC support group, I was like, let me see what this is. And opened up and everything like that. And when I saw the price, I was like, okay, I'm not working right now. But then it really came to, what do you need for yourself, right? And what are you willing to invest? And when I saw that there was, some space to kind of maneuver in the financial area, I was like, this is what I need. And there was a layout of what was happening, how the weeks were going to go. And I think that helped with just organizing my healing, right? Really organizing expectation of what was to come, and really being able to know that, okay, they're able to hold space for things that I didn't even think of in this period, or what I would need. There was just so much opportunity for what holding space felt like, and I really honored that.
For me, I don't really remember how I found the support group, honestly. I believe I was probably searching on Instagram, because at that point in time I was I believe, 4 weeks from my loss. And I lost my son Zion at 26 weeks old after like a direct admit into the hospital for observation that kind of turned into a crash C-section. And so I was very much in shock at 4 weeks postpartum. I was just still, having postpartum visits. Honestly, I was on Instagram, I think, trying to find answers, trying to find people who look like me, who had stories that were similar to mine, and just trying to figure out how I could advocate for myself. At that time, I was also in therapy. I honestly went to therapy, mental health therapy, 2 weeks after I lost Zion. So, and that started with EMDR therapy right away. But I knew I just needed some additional support from folks who have been through this. And so I think I may have found the group on Instagram or something like that. So I ended up signing up. And I was not, I've never done a support group. I work in the mental health field, but would never consider myself to be a person who would go to a support group. But again, it was very laid out, well organized. And I actually used a gift card that my coworker sent me during that time. So when people were asking me like what I needed, I'm like, you can send money, gift cards. I need things to help myself at this point. I need therapies, acupuncture, all the things that were going to help me that I was already doing, but now, having to pay for. So I thought it was great that everything was laid out, and it was very welcoming for someone with a very recent loss like mine. A lot of support groups I looked at were not very well set up for someone who was very fresh in their grief. And I worried that when I would log on, that the emotions that would come out would not be well accepted in, other spaces. And so I wanted to make sure I felt comfortable when I did log in right away. I felt like, okay, they don't care that I'm going to probably cry the entire session, or I don't really know what I need, what I want. I don't even know what I'm doing at this point. But they, everyone was very welcoming to the fact that, my loss was so new. And, I was able to talk about my, multiple losses. I mean, I'd had a miscarriage a year before that, and a loss some years before that. And was one of the few ladies there without living children too. So I was able to connect, pretty well right away. And I'm very grateful for the time and, time and community that was set aside for us.
For me, when I experienced my loss, something that I craved, pretty immediately after was connection with other people who had been through similar experiences. And, the statistics for a chromosomal anomaly like my baby had, it sounds like a low number, that 1 in 5,000 pregnancies are affected. But in my mind, I knew, that yes, it sounds like such a small number, but there have to be like so many people out there who have had similar losses. So my hospital connected me with their behavioral health department. The therapist that I was connected with had been hoping to do a group therapy for people with pregnancy loss. But it is something that I do find still there's people find it challenging to talk about. So what started out as going to be group therapy ended up not having many takers. So it ended up just being individual therapy. But she was able to share other resources with me of organizations that did do things that were more in a group setting, which was what I had wanted. I started out with going to support groups through Postpartum Support International, and they had a support group for termination for medical reasons, which for me, it was like finding something specific to my loss was wonderful. But when I was in that space, I felt like Ashley and Marquetta were saying that I didn't see that many people who also looked like me. And I, that was something that was still missing for me. And through that group, people mentioned Return to Zero Hope. And when I first checked out the website, I saw a poetry workshop. So I did a poetry workshop through RTZ. And then after that workshop ended, I saw that in January 2023, another BIPOC support group was starting. So it seemed like I had enjoyed the poetry workshop. I'd been looking for a space with other people of color. In my professional life, I really benefited from being in affinity spaces with other people of color. It's really helped me process a lot of things in my life and move forward with a lot of things. So it felt like, why not in this experience that has caused me so much hardship? I think my only hesitation with joining the group was that it wasn't specific to terminations for medical reasons. So I wasn't sure, like what people's reactions would be to that type of loss. But when I did join, I found that, RTC is very intentional about making the groups comfortable for people with any type of loss. So then, for me, it turned out to be a really good fit, even if it wasn't for my specific type of loss.
Thank you all. You are all incredible warrior mamas, and we really appreciate you sharing so openly and candidly about your loss experiences and about your interaction or introduction to the RTZ Hope groups. As you all heard, these three experiences are so vastly different from each other. Ashley had a miscarriage, Sulie had a termination for medical reasons, Marquetta had a neonatal death, and we managed to help them all feel supported in this space because we were supporting them in a space with, as they all said, people who looked like them. Each one of you shared how important it was to you to be in a space with other people who looked like you. And once we're in these spaces, what's shared resonates so much more than what we experience in predominantly white spaces or exclusively white spaces, right? And so it's really powerful to hear that from your perspectives, because that's what a lot of people ask about, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. They say, well, what makes the BIPOC groups different? Why do we need BIPOC groups? It's about the loss. It's not about that a person is a person of color or not, but it is. And as we all here know, our experiences are so different, and it's so important, if not necessary, to have those connections. So I would love if you all could go a little bit more in depth about your experience through your 6 or 6+ weeks in the groups that you participated in, how they helped you, how you felt supported. And especially since it sounds like since 3 of you have experiences in other non-BIPOC spaces, not even necessarily specific to your loss experiences, but if you can help us understand how a BIPOC support space compares to a non-BIPOC support space.
I don't remember much, both, and I remember the allowance for like the things that already felt natural to me, if that makes sense. So a lot of like pausing, breath work, coming into like some place of stillness, right? Recentering. And I think what really stands out is before we started, we were asked to like write out our births, like our story. And I sat with it, and like writing it allowed me to release a lot more, right? There's something about like, and I journal, I like do all the things, but I think like to prepare for this group, being able to really write out, right, just that experience, right? Because again, I'm like going through a trifecta of grief, and it's like, okay, I don't even know how to sort any of this out because it all feels like a loss. So it allowed me to really just focus on what am I feeling? What is my story when it comes to my miscarriage, right? What comes up for me here? How did this happen? What, where was I when I realized X, Y, and Z was taking place, right? Really allowing me to separate that from my son moving and then, whatever had taken place with my husband. So it like that setup for me was like very important, more than I think I realized how important it was at the time. And allowed those next 6 weeks to really allow me to focus on like my connection with my baby, right? Even though it was a very short time, like there was a connection there, right? What my womb space was feeling, what I needed to do to take care of that space, right? And then even like trying to slowly come back into my yoga practice because I felt like I wasn't going to be able to do that anymore. So I intentionally, when we would meet, I would sit on my yoga mat, right, to just keep myself centered in that space of what that healing journey for that loss needed to look like. And then just being able to like really have more empathy and compassion for the other stories, the other women in the group. Like I'm thinking about them now. Sometimes they come to my mind, and I'm like, I wonder, how they're doing. I follow one on Instagram. Like, so it's just like it's like a little community of like a little family of women, Black and brown women, that it's like, even though we're not, in communication with each other, it's like, I'm honoring them, I'm honoring their baby and their stories also. And I think it's important for us to be able to heal each other in collective grief, right? As like with people that look the same, because there's just something different about being able to see somebody that looks like you, right? And like we can be able to talk about not just the joy parts of life, right? And the luxuries of life, but also that pain that is very deep rooted that we're kind of like told by society isn't important to us, right? We have to be the strong people. We have to be, Black and brown women have to be strong. We have to be superheroes. We have to do all these things. And I remember my family was like, well, you need to get your son back. You need to like start working on that. And I'm just like, I can't even like get up and shower. You want me to like, yes, I miss him. And yes, I would be pregnant in some way, shape, or form, but I can't even like shower. Like I'm wearing the same pajamas 4 times a week, drinking just coffee and eating kale. I can't do anything else for anybody else at this point. So I think it's beautiful when Black and brown women can get together and be able to say, sis, it's okay for you to take that cape off. And that's what validated me a lot, like being told that it's okay, do what you need to do for you and let that be enough for today.
Yeah, and I agree with everything Ashley said, and like just being able to have that space and time, because I didn't feel like in my grief journey, in that short period of time that I was in the group, that I had time with other Black women, or even with family members, to even hold space. And so I was able to kind of really have that time that I can say Zion's name in the group, and everybody would take that time and just really honor him. It also helped me to normalize my grief, because in a non BIPOC space, I would have grieved differently, and I quite honestly probably would have never told anybody my birth story, because I'm in those spaces most of my day. And so this group gave me the opportunity to share my story, including the trauma associated with the birth. Because I honestly would not have felt comfortable sharing that anywhere else. I would have glanced over that part and just told you how bad I feel about the loss. But the trauma surrounding my actual birth was what was heavy for me at that moment. And I felt comfortable being able to kind of share that. During that time, I was also going through many milestones, and it was great in the group to kind of talk about, well, due dates are coming up for us who had babies early, or I was planning a memorial service at that time. How do I do that? How do I honor, my child and I've never seen this being done in my family before. And so having other women who have done this before and said, this is how I did, memorials, and showing that on social media, just made me more comfortable moving forward with many of the things that I was able to do to honor him, because I quite honestly probably wouldn't have done them without the group. Also, just it helped me to really understand that I am still a parent. I'm a parent, I'm a mom. That was hard for me to say at that time. I didn't feel like a mom. I didn't feel like a parent. And most people, honestly, in most spaces probably wouldn't see me that way. And so it really helped me to be able to acknowledge that I am a mom. I was Zion's mom, and being able to be unapologetic about, sharing him with folks outside of the group. So it just gave me a lot of confidence overall, really, to show up as a mom, show up as a parent, and talk about Zion.
Like Ashley and Marquetta have already said, just having that space to share the full story was really beneficial to me. The other support groups that I'd been part of, they didn't have that structure of, it's the same small group of people that meet for 6 weeks. It was more of a come when you can type of space. So you never really got to delve deep into like the specifics of your story. So that's something that I appreciated about the structure of this group. And then when it comes to things that I feel I was able to get from it that I couldn't necessarily get from predominantly white spaces, I had a lot of anger about what had happened to me. Not just the part of, why was I the statistic that this had to happen to, but also just the way that the situation played out in the medical system. And that I was able to share that in the other support groups that I was part of. But I think just having that common understanding that the medical system has frequently failed women like us, Black and Brown women, that just felt like I didn't need to explain that in that space. And it was validated that, it's that it is part of a systemic issue that affects women like us. And then the other thing is how Ashley touched on the idea that you have to be strong and you have to overcome. And I think that for me, that was something that I felt from my family, where, like whenever I turned to them for support, they would tell me how strong I am and how I will get through this. And, I am strong and I will get through this, but sometimes you just need to be vulnerable. And I think that it was just really powerful to be in a space where I think all of the other participants also felt that pressure to be strong and to move forward. But then we were creating a space together where we could be vulnerable and where we didn't have to put on the strong face or the brave face for that time that we were together.
Well, so much there to unpack, but I actually want to go through 3 of the key themes that all 3 of you brought up for this collective space, because it's really, really powerful. One of the things that that the facilitators try and do so much is to constantly look at our structure and make sure that we're continuing to make sure it is inclusive of and represents the diverse community, right? So because we recognize that we hold so much, we have so many masks that we show up on a daily basis. We deal with the systemic racism in the healthcare system, systemic racism in all things upon life that we touch, right? And then there's, so having that structure in this group provides every single person that is participating with a clear idea of what to expect somewhat, right? And it grounds us of, there is some homework, there is some self-work that we ask you to do every single week. So that we have found that structure can help guide you along the 6 weeks and prepare you for the after you leave our little group that you have. So I wanted to highlight on that. Another thing is helping acknowledge that you are a parent is so important. Not only because so many people around us do not, but because you need to look at yourself in the mirror first and foremost and come to that realization, because you are a parent, no matter who is in front of you, no matter what relatives in front of you, no matter what best friend or some stranger. So that is something that we feel so honored to create the space to give you that, to make sure that hopefully within the 6-week time frame that you can truly feel that you are a parent. So thank you three for sharing that. So for those that are you know, what would we would love for you to share what you may, for those that are like on the fence or someone that is considering support from our group specifically, what would you like to share with them?
I would share that I know like Marquita said it earlier, and I agreed with her that I wasn't like a big support group person. My therapist and I had talked about like support groups before, and I was just like, oh no, it's okay. I don't need all these people like around me. Like I'm okay to deal with it on my own, you know. And she was like, okay, well, you know, your homework is to like also research, because there were 2 different support groups that I needed to find for myself. But I would say that don't limit what support looks like for you, right? We have our friends, we have our family, and we love them all, right? There's something special, there's something affirming, there's something very healing about allowing yourself to find community that is able to speak to exactly what it is that you need, like that will hit home like every time, right? And family and friends, they may not have experienced what you experienced. They may not really understand. They're going to have their opinions, their judgments, their, you know, what they think you should do, what they think you should feel. But ask yourself, what does support look like for myself? Right? What is it that I need that's going to allow me to like kind of let go and allow people who have also been through this experience uphold me and guide me and prepare me for how to really incorporate this loss into my life after the 6 weeks, right? So I would really just say, like, ask yourself, what does support look like for you? And where do you think you can find that? And if you can't find it in your community already, come to RTZ Hope.
Yes, absolutely. I would also say as well is grief changes, you know, and no matter where you're at, you know, on your grief journey, you know, it comes and it goes, and you know, life changes, you change as a person. And so things you may not think you needed, or support you may not think you need now, you may need 6 months from now. Or you may have not think you needed it before, but now, you know, you do. And so I think it's so true. Like you got to figure out what your support system is. And I know it's difficult to think, well, I'm going to, you know, signing up to be, you know, have support from total strangers. But quite honestly, it does not feel that way. It really does feel, you know, like a small, intimate group. And again, there are not folks coming in and out of the group. It's a closed group once it starts. And so you'll kind of be starting and hopefully finishing with the same group of folks that you started with. And so I think that makes a big difference as well. And I would honestly just say, give it a try. You know, that the first session is a lot of just kind of figuring out what the group is and kind of understanding a little bit more about how things are set up. And so, you know, just give it a try and see what you think. I definitely feel that it's a great compliment. If you're already in therapy, it's very complimentary to therapy. If you're not, even better, because it is the structure is very therapeutic. I will say that, with the breath work and holding space and taking time to pause and reflect. Those are all things that slow us down and slow our bodies down and our minds. So I think those were all very good components of this group that I don't think you'll find anywhere else. And so I would just say, give it a try. Ask friends for support. Honestly, like I said, pay for it through a gift card that coworkers gave me. So if it cost is a concern, you know, just, you know, speak up and say that. And I'm sure folks will be willing to help out.
I think that pregnancy and infant loss is something that people really shy away from talking about in society in general. And I think that is, for me, in my experience, especially true in my community. And just talking about painful things in general is something that I don't often find my family wanting to do. And I think that it is really important to find that space where you are able to talk about painful things, because otherwise they just fester. And I found that the way that the group was structured, like Marquetta was saying, it starts with just introducing concepts and sort of wading into the topic. And then by the end of it, I feel like you're able to go so deep, because it builds on one session builds on the next. So I think that it is really great structure to maybe get comfortable talking about things that have always felt like, oh, like people don't want to hear about this. And I also find that people who have this shared experience of pregnancy and infant loss, like, we understand that it's not just one and done, like, oh, I talked about it once and I'm all better. It is something that, you know, you're gonna maybe continue finding other layers to your grief, like Ashley and Marquetta have said. And in this space, you know, you're not going to be told like, oh, you've already talked about that enough. Like, it's going to be a space where it's actually welcome for you to like continue to explore and just figure out the different components of your grief and the different components of your healing.
Can't nod my head enough with everything that you all saying. I love to believe that all of your amazing wisdom and knowledge about the support group comes as a direct result of being in the support group. But we cannot take all the credit for that. As you know, as you pointed out, grief is evolving, it's changing. You learn how to parent a child who isn't here one day at a time. And day to day, it can look different. Minute to minute, it can look different. And absolutely, within that support space, we all get it. And within RTZ as a whole, we all get it. Everyone directly involved with the organization, from the board of directors to the executive director to staff to facilitators, the vast majority of all of those folks have experienced losses themselves. So we totally get it. And I think that shows in just how everything is conducted. One of you mentioned how finding a support group, if you're not in, is better, even as, like, especially if you're not in therapy, like, find some type of support. And I wanted to add to that I researched a lot of things. I get teased for researching too much, but there's actual research that has shown that peer support, group support, can be more effective in healing than direct mental health therapy. Not saying to not do it. Do it all. Get all the support, all the resources that you can, because it's not a journey we were meant to be on, not one we want to be on, and not one that anyone knows how to navigate. We are thrown into this and we got to figure it out. And where do you find those answers? From other people who have walked this path before you. And every journey is going to look different, but we can at least help give you some tools, some knowledge, some skills for navigating that, and even just the language on how to talk about it. Thank you again for your amazing responses, being brave, being here, sharing openly, honestly, with us and with everyone who's participating live and everyone who's watching us in the recording after the fact. We do want to open it up to the audience to ask any questions, share any comments. We just got a few minutes left here, but if anyone has anything, feel free to unmute yourselves, come on camera if you'd like, or drop anything in the chat.
As we wait for any questions, I just wanted to, again, thank all the panelists for agreeing to do this, number one, and two, for just speaking candidly about your experiences. Like Anna said, we're like over here nodding our head at all the things that you all are saying, and we really are like, I'm so proud to see all of you and how you have progressed throughout your journeys. I often say 6 weeks sounds like a really long time, but once you get thrust in a group, then you're like, oh my God, it's already over. Like, what do we do? But you are, the way that group is set up, and we do this intentionally, we want you to feel comfortable to talk about your grief, to uncover those layers that most of you mentioned that you're not typically able to do with people in the outside world. And we kind of feel like this is our little insulated bubble that we've created for each other so that we can get vulnerable and we can go deep, because oftentimes as people of color, we are not allowed to do that. We are asked to brave the world with these strong, tropes that we often don't like. And so I am just so very proud of each of you. And even for those of you that have joined who were in past groups, or even those who will be joining us in the fall, it's just a huge step to say, I'm going to sign up for support. And that could feel scary. So I am so proud of you. It is always so beautiful to see you all's journeys as you continue. We love to hear your feedback. We love to get your updates on, subsequent pregnancies, or just to hear like what you have going on. I know Ashley has like a podcast and things like that. So just like seeing where you all go from group, because you are whole people that do amazing things outside. Loss is just one piece of our story, but it's not the whole thing. And so we are often always excited to hear what you have next, and always to hold space for your baby. So if we don't have any questions, I wanted to go into this last piece before Domenique closes out with announcements. But we just wanted to, as we do in all of our groups, acknowledge all of you as parents who have experienced loss. We know that this is one of the hardest things that you have to deal with in life, losing a child, having a baby die. And we try to make that language accessible to all of us, because we do have these deep feelings, and we say, no matter if you were pregnant one day, if you lost your baby in a NICU, or whatever your circumstance looks like, we want to honor your babies. And so some of us have candles that we want to light today in honor of all of your babies, those who we know and those who we don't, that we may be able to get to know your story soon. We want to take this time just to honor them. So we're going to have a moment of silence, and we'll do that for about 30 seconds. Thank you so much for allowing us to hold this space for you and your babies tonight. We truly appreciate each one of you for showing up tonight. And again, thank you to all of our panelists. You all are absolutely amazing, and we can't wait to see what's next for you. So make sure that you keep us posted on what you have going on. We love to support you in any way that we can. But I wanted to turn this over to Domenique so that she can give us some announcements. And if you have your social media handle that you want us to follow you, please drop it in the chat so that we can stay connected via social media.
Thank you so much. I'm keeping my candle burning. As Alishia mentioned, please do reach out to us and each other. We, of course, facilitate the 6-week program as co-facilitators. But of course, we're here really in the community supporting as many diverse individuals as we possibly can. So please don't hesitate to reach out. One of the things that you heard me mention, actually it was Anna mentioned earlier today, is we're thrilled to have our first Spanish group that actually starts October 22nd, and we do have some openings for that. So we would love for you to continue spreading the word for us if you can, if we can provide support to someone that prefers to be supported in Spanish. Another thing that I wanted to make sure that I can highlight, or we could highlight, is that money should never be a deciding factor of whether or not you can join our group or not. We do have some financial support that is available on the website, and if it is difficult to locate, because it can be a little tricky to locate, please reach out to either Alishia, Anna, or myself, and we will get you signed up at the rate that feels right for you. And that is extremely, extremely important for us. Another piece is, I think we are actually going to do just an end of event survey, because we want to, you heard us mention that we want to continue holding space for our diverse community here. So we want to be able to offer different drop-in options, possibly different webinars, and just feature different resources on the website. So feedback is so important for us to be able to do that. So we're going to do that with just a quick end of survey event survey pop-up, and if you could provide some information there, that would be great. And if you are don't have very much time, you can feel free to just respond to us on either Instagram or send us a message, and we will regroup with that information as well. So are we going to start our feedback? Right. Do I have to start that, Alishia?
I think once you click end, then it should pop up for you. It's 4 questions, so we just ask that you fill that out before you close your browser, and you all are free to go. But we thank you so much for coming. And if you have any additional questions, if you are in our upcoming fall groups, you have any questions, please let us know. For those of you that were in our past groups, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. And if there's nothing else, we will see you all around. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And thank you so much again for joining us this evening.
Thank you.